Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Cabinet Advisory Committee for Housing. I'm Pip Hazelton, and there's no fire alarm plan for the meeting. Should the alarm sound, please leave via the nearest emergency exit. The two exits are through the glass door behind you and through the double doors onto the riverside. Please meet at Tower House car park. Members of the public are welcome to make their own recordings of the meeting using whatever non-disruptive methods they think are suitable. Can I remind everyone present at this meeting it is being minuted, recorded, filmed and made available to view in live and archive form via the Council's website. Please be aware of this, especially if sharing personal circumstances. If you're seated in the public gallery, it's possible that the cameras may capture your image. If you wish to avoid being filmed, recommended you make a member of staff aware who can direct you where to sit. Due to the seating arrangements for this meeting, the camera may occasionally shift its focus to the empty seats at the front of the room. This may happen briefly between different speakers, but the camera should quickly return to the active speaker each time. The Westgate garden gates on the riverside are locked at dusk, so members of the public must leave the Guildhall by the side exit behind the glass door. But as we're nearly at Midsummer's Day, I don't think it'll be dusk for a while yet. So, Pippa, do we have any apologies for absence?
We have apologies from Councillor Forrester and Councillor Mackenzie.
And any substitute members?
Councillor Buckman is present for Councillor Mackenzie.
Thank you. Okay, I've got a little explanation which I hope won't be too complicated and won't kind of take up too much time of the meeting, and then we can get on with the main event, as it were. But at the annual meeting, Council proposed changes to the committee chair and the appointment of a vice chair to reflect recent changes in the Council's leadership composition. The terms of reference of the Advisory Committee, considered on the 27th of November 25 and approved by Cabinet on the 8th of December 25, provide that the portfolio holder for housing shall act as chair. The leader has agreed to waive this requirement, thereby permitting any member of the committee to be nominated for the role. So, subject to there being a proposer and seconder, it's recommended that the committee endorse the nomination of Councillor Claire Turnbull as chair and Councillor Pip Hazelton as vice chair in accordance with the recommendation of Council. So, having read that out, can I ask for a proposer, please?
I don't sit down this way very often. Yeah, I'd like to propose along those lines of Claire Turnbull for chair and vice chair Pip Hazelton. Do I seconding that?
Thank you very much, Councillor Buckman. And a seconder, please. Can you put that?
Happy to second.
Thank you very much, Mike. And Pippa, I think we need to take a recorded vote.
A vote, the plus is for. Oh gosh. Abstain is minus, and a vote.
And an X is abstain.
Sorry. A vote plus is for, a minus is against, and a cross is abstain. And that's carried unanimously.
Thank you very much. In that case, I'll now vacate the chair and hand over to our new chair, Claire. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Pip, and thanks, everybody. Right, I'm just trying to find out where we are now. Where are we? Declarations of interest, I think. Have you had any declarations of interest in advance, Pippa?
None in advance, Chair.
Thanks. Any declarations of interest from the floor? Marie?
Thank you, Chair. Just to declare that I'm a director on the Canenco board. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? Okay, so just to confirm that there are no public speakers for this meeting. And the first item is the minutes of the meeting on the 23rd of April. Hopefully you've had a chance to have a look at those. Are we happy to agree them as a true record by general assent? Thank you. So, item 7, update on the Social Housing Consumer Standards Service Improvement Plan. This is a report that we've got to note and from Tracy Chambers, Head of Housing and Community. And I'd like to invite John Nottage, the Tenancy, Policy and Programme Officer, to introduce the report and to make any opening remarks. After that, we'll open up for questions from members and then round up any main points at the end. Thank you. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so hopefully you may have had a chance to have a look at the report. The purpose of the report is to provide an overview of progress against the Consumer Standards Improvement Action Plan, or Service Improvement Plan as referenced in Appendix 3. So the action plan sets out essentially 9 actions that link to our strategy. Firstly, in terms of stock condition and asset data, we've had significant progress made in surveying the housing stock, and we've currently completed 78% of the stock. In terms of our decency figure across the Decent Home Standard, we'll be submitting our final figure this month, as we're required to do, which is 84%. In terms of compliance and safety, compliance across key safety areas has improved and is subject to stronger monitoring and oversight, with a continued focus on reducing outstanding actions. And in terms of our adaptation service, policy and monitoring arrangements are now in place, with further work underway to improve performance tracking and customer feedback. Moving on to Action 5 and tenant data, particularly protected characteristics data, which is something I've been working on. Progress has been made sorting out the systems and data collection tools needed to be collecting this from the 1st of June. So we are now collecting this as of this month. In terms of service standards and performance information, information is increasingly being shared. As mentioned, our decency rate will be published on our website, and there's plans to share performance information more regularly with a dedicated web page for that. In terms of Action 7, the regulator commented on the improved position in relation to complaints, with most complaints now responded to in time, and better oversight part in that. Action 8 refers to antisocial behaviour and hate incidents. There's process now in place to record, monitor and report antisocial behaviour and hate-related incidents. And finally, in terms of Action 9, which again relates to antisocial behaviour, service improvement and satisfaction, when work is underway to better understand and respond to tenant feedback on antisocial behaviour, including work with our communications group just recently. So overall, I think there's good progress is being made across the 9 actions, with most on track or completed. The regulator was very clear that we must make sure that all aspects of whichever particular action are completed before we sign that off as complete. In relation to that, Action 5.3 that you'll see on the plan was delayed because of an interdependency with Action 5.2, but that is now complete, and that relates to a procedure in relation to inputting tenant data into our system. We will overrun on Action 5.4. That's another area of work that I'm involved in, as we just work out some of the finer detail, again related to collecting tenant data and sort of making sure that we've got resource in place, and some of the finer detail involved with working with the contact centre who do our phone calls, and who we've still got some finer details, I say, to work out in terms of how they might be able to collect some of that data for us. So overall, a positive meeting with the regulator on the 28th of May. Some actions remain dependent on system changes or further embedding of processes, but overall delivery is progressing in line with the overall plan. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thanks very much. Does anybody wish to raise anything? No,
Not
let's
so
just
much a raise, but a
yes.
question.
Yes, just trying to remember.
It's mainly to do with the actual table itself. There are some entries that are marked as completed that aren't shaded in green and others that are. Is there a difference between those or is it just formatting? Example would be 4.1 and 4.2, both marked as completed. One line, page 29. One line entirely lit, shaded in green, one line not so.
Thank you, Mike. Tracy? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for your question, Mike, and your eagle eyes. Yeah, that's an error. That's my error. I'm sorry. And we will correct that. It is completed and it should be green. Thank you.
So Councillor Carnap and Councillor Buckman.
Yeah, I've got a few questions, but first of all, related to that as well, what does the time-based mean? Because in some cases, like number 1, it says October 26, and we're not there, but it says started maybe late. Same with September 26, and then other ones are in the, so some of them are for 25. So I'm unclear whether that is meant to be a completion date or a start date or what it relates to. It could do with some. I don't think it's very clear quite.
Sorry, yes, Tracy, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, they are completion dates. So some of them, for example, the first one is around stock condition surveys, and it's about whether we would have been able to complete it within that time. So it might be that it's slightly late. That's why that's put on there, but we're still hoping to be able to achieve that. The ones that are listed as 25, the reason that some of them, they are done, but they're not fully signed off because what the regulator said is we need to make sure that we've got complete assurance that we're satisfied that these actions are not only completed, but that we've checked them and been through them and made sure that we're completely satisfied. So we're hoping to get some of those completely signed off for the next time. I hope that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So could we change that so it's not time-based and no completion date or something? Because I think time-based doesn't really mean anything. And then knowing now that that's a proposed end date, maybe that could just be in the wording at the top. It would be clearer to everyone then.
Yes, thank you, Tracy.
Yeah, thank you. Yep, happy to change that and make that clearer. Thank you.
Before I go to Councillor Buckman, I agree. I think the format, and I think I gather the format's right for the RSH. We spoke about this the other day, didn't we? But I think for us, it's not quite. It doesn't quite get what we want to see. I don't think, does it? I think that's what Councillor Carnap's saying. So maybe that's something we need to just have a look at. Thanks, Councillor Buckman. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, obviously I'm a substitute tonight, so some of these questions might not be relevant, or it might not be the place for them. But on there's a couple of things on the about the occupational therapists and adaptations, and the policy that's now completed. Is part of the policy that the OT makes suggestions for adaptations, and then obviously they have to you'd have to have a surveyor to come in to check whether these adaptations are possible. And then the question to follow on with that was, if further adaptations are needed within a house due to whatever, how does a policy relate to that? So I've got a couple of. So you mentioned about the hate crimes and reporting of those. I mean, obviously, it's quite hard because they need to be confidential, and obviously people are worried about repercussions as well of reporting those sort of things. So I don't know how that is written to like safeguard the members or the residents. So I just need to sort of scroll through a couple of things now. I think it was about sort of antisocial behaviour. I mean, do you require like the police to be involved with some sort of crime reference number before you would investigate antisocial behaviour? Because depending on that, it's hard to get a crime reference number because they're not always, especially if I'd say like smoking drugs or whatever, you know, it's very hard for the police to come and investigate due to lack of resources, and also they need to be caught in the act. And if I just ask one further thing, is there a policy on like medical cannabis at all? If you have tenants using that, because of just yeah, so because obviously if there's no smoking indoors and like that. But that's that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Buckman. There's quite a range of questions there. So are they all for you, do you think, Tracy? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for your questions. I will hopefully cover them all. If I don't, please let me know. So starting with the adaptations. So we have got an adaptations policy in place now. So what will happen normally with adaptations, it will come through and that there'll be a request. It will get sent to the occupational therapists. They will look at the requirements in the home. What we then need to do is send a surveyor out to look at the home and decide whether those adaptations are possible. And they'll make a decision about whether they can or can't be done. And then they'll come to the team to be able to do those adaptations. Following that, if for some reason someone's circumstances become worse and they require more adaptations, we'll go back through the process again and look at what else we need. And we'll obviously make sure that that property is suitable for that person and meets their medical needs. In terms of hate crime, it's just about us reporting the numbers. So previously we weren't reporting on the numbers of hate crime. So we won't report the details of the hate crime. It will just be the numbers. So how many cases that we dealt with that were related to hate crime. So we would make sure that obviously the people that are reporting that are protected as much as they can be and are supported by the team. In terms of antisocial behaviour, it doesn't necessarily need to be reported to the police. It depends whether we've defined it as being antisocial, and then we'll make that determination about how we manage that and manage that behaviour. So the first port of call will always try and be to manage that, to deal with that, to de-escalate, and be able to make sure that people are living in the environment that you'd expect them to be living in. So there doesn't need to be, but if we need to involve the police, then we work really closely with the police and we make sure that we have all the information and that it's escalated where there is a criminal offence on that. And then on the medical cannabis, so they are people's homes. They can do what they want within reason in their homes. So if they have got medical cannabis, they can do that. We would just ask that people don't smoke in the communal areas. So that would be the only restrictions around that. If they've got it for medical reasons, and that's absolutely fine. And hopefully that covered your questions. But please come back if I've missed anything.
No, that's fine. It was. I think the medical cannabis was one that was obviously if someone else is smelling someone else, you'd have to have that leeway and understand. Well, I'm sure you do. Sorry, as I say, I'm just turning up this evening, so I'm sure it's. Thank you.
Councillor Jupe, thanks. That wasn't me. I didn't mean it, honest. So the one thing I do know really well is compliance, and well done on all your compliance stats. That's pretty good, but I'm missing one of them, which is the gas safety. I can see here we've got 98% compliance with CO regs, and well done on all of the fire safety work that's been going on, which, to be fair, we haven't got many high rises, so should be pretty easy to get 100%. But 98% is still 110-ish properties without CO alarms. Please get them in, because yeah. But what's the gas safety like? Why isn't that on there? Is that ever expected to be on here? Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. The action plan reflects what was picked up in the audit that we had, the tenant health and safety audit. So the actions from that audit were transferred into that. So at that time, the gas safety would have been okay. I'm happy to share with you where we are with our LGSR if you want me to provide you.
That's answered it. If the regulator says that the audit it didn't need picking up,
but we
then
do
that's
report it still monthly. We have the conversation, we meet with PIP and we report it.
Yeah. I got 100% for another local authority, so I'm still flexing that. Yeah, the 95% compliance on EICRs, that's 279. That is a lot. How long do you expect that to take, and how many will then become out of date in that time?
The EICRs, yes, there are a number that are overdue, and we are working really hard to fix some of those. Some of those are in very hard to access properties. So we've recently agreed a dedicated resource to try and tackle this particular issue, as well as along other work streams where we're having hard to access, because quite often it's not just one thing that you can't get into a property for. So we're working with the contractor and with our locality teams.
Have you made Cardo get an RLO then?
They do have one.
Oh, okay.
They do have one. But it's not Cardo that does the EICRs.
Okay.
It's a separate contractor.
Okay. Councillor Carnac was next, and then Councillor Hazelton. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. I too agree that it's good to see that there are completion there has been the completion rather of a number of issues, and that the housing asset management strategy is now published. What I wanted to ask was actually about the housing stock condition surveys, because that seems to have been a bugbear for years now, doesn't it? I mean, it's just been rattling on, and it's looking like it's going to be late. Can you give us some idea of what the plans are to make sure there are enough staff to cover that, and also access to properties? And related to that, I wanted to ask about the protected characteristics survey that you're carrying out at the moment, and how difficult is that? Because I noticed that people are happy to give their age and sex, but not really anything else, which is understandable, because I sort of feel that probably people feel it's the council sticking their nose in to things that, you know, people might not necessarily want to discuss. So I just wanted to know again how you're getting on. And I note that your meeting on May 28th, the government gave you suggestions on how to be able to get better access. Would you be able to share some of those with us as well? Thank you.
Thanks, Alexis. Thank you.
I'll respond to the bit on stock condition surveys. So we've made really good progress on the stock condition surveys. We took the decision end of last year to outsource the remainder to Savills, because yes, it had been slow and we'd been beset with issues, you know, with absences and all kinds of things. So that they've made really good progress, and we'll be in a position shortly, I think, to update the data that we've got in here. We will have a number of properties that we know are hard to access. We know that already. So our next step on that is to go back to Savills and discuss with them a hard to access program, because they do this as part of their bread and butter. So we want to see what they can offer us in terms of trying to get into those remaining properties to complete our data. So we're doing well on that. I think started but maybe late. I think we were a bit cautious at the beginning, but we're really well on track. So it will always be the hard to access ones that I think there'll be a core that will probably, you know, struggle to get into at the end, but we're hoping that we'll make some good progress on that between now and then.
Yes, thank you, Tracy.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for your questions around the protected characteristics. So we're obviously going to try our best to get as much data as we can. It is optional, so people don't have to supply the information. So if they don't want to supply information around sex, for example, they don't have to. So there is an option for them to decline that, because we know that can be a sensitive situation, but officers will be trained in being sensitive to that, and make sure that the customers understand that why we're collecting this data, what it's for, and what we're using the data for, so that they don't think that we're just collecting it to hold it on the system. We are going to be using it. We are going to be making sure we've got equitable outcomes for all of our tenants, and that's why we're collecting this. But yeah, they can refuse. Thanks.
Thank you. Pip, please.
Well, thank you. So really interesting that a number of the questions are exactly the sorts of questions as the portfolio holder that I asked the officers about. So I'm really interested. The feedback about the chart not being easy to read, I completely agree with, but I think it went back through the regulator time after time until the regulator liked this version. So I think there might be shrugging of shoulders all round by officers as well as us as, you know, councillors and members of this committee about it. But anyway, I was interested to hear, you know, multiple comments about that. The thing about hard to access is a really important one for me, and I don't know whether, I mean, obviously it's up to this committee and chair to, but I think that it would be good to have a kind of spotlight report on hard to access at some point. And I have I have several monthly meetings about different aspects of housing, but one of them is about compliance, about the, you know, the gas and the electrical and so on. And I know some boroughs are more robust than we have been traditionally in going to court to get permission to enter. And I think we have started trialing some of those, which is obviously a last resort. We want to be able to create a better relationship generally with our tenants, so that number of hard to reach becomes, you know, much smaller. And I'm also particularly aware that I think that behind every hard to access door, there's something else going on, some other vulnerability. There may be tenancy fraud, there may be, you know, people may be being cuckooed, there may be domestic abuse, there may be child neglect, you know, self-neglect, mental health, all sorts of things lie potentially behind that door. So you know, what I'm wanting to see that we can make every door knock count. But I've also been reminded only yesterday that we have to be careful that if we have permission to enter, for example, for a safety check, we can't kind of, oh, let's do the stock condition survey on the back of it. You know, so I was thinking, oh, you know, one court order, you know, will kind of, you know, but having said that, I think it's really important that all officers who have any, whether they're our contractors or our in-house staff, have any contact with tenants, that they have, you know, obviously their basic safeguarding training, so that they're alert for, you know, for signs of vulnerability or signs of neglect or abuse. And just, sorry, Chair, so my question is about the tenant data. And just kind of for the record, really, I'd be really keen to hear officers explain to us why the collection of tenant data is so important, because that was something I know that the regulator certainly picked up on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hazelton. I was just thinking that myself as we were talking about it just then, and like you say, it's we only collect this information which touches on Councillor Buckman's point as well. You know, do we actually need it? And presumably it's to help you deal with people, but we don't want to collect things we don't need to know. So is that you? That's John. Thanks.
I'll have a go at that one. Yeah, thank you for the question. So this comes from the the regulatory standards called the consumer standards, and then within the transparency, influence and accountability standard, it talks about equitable outcomes for tenants, and that we must achieve fair and equitable outcomes for tenants. So I suppose in terms of protected characteristics, what they're looking for a landlord to do, like us, is to make sure that there aren't any barriers in terms of our landlord service delivery in relation to any one of those protected characteristics. So I suppose the importance of collection is that so that we can check against any particular area. So for example, if we were to look at our rent arrears cases, for example, we would look into, say, the highest arrears cases, and if there were particular protected characteristics that featured there, you know, that could be something that we need to address that we weren't aware of. And it's the same for any sort of particular aspect of the landlord service in relation to antisocial behaviour cases. The regulator did ask us to set out particular areas that we might look into, and we've done that. Those are 2 of the 5. I'm struggling to remember the 3 at the moment, if I'm honest, but we also put that to our tenants to sort of feedback on particular areas they might like us to look at. So I think the importance of of it, and what the regulation is about is just to make sure that our tenants aren't being discriminated against because of any particular protected characteristic.
Thank you. And I think it's how you communicate that to tenants, isn't it? So that they understand without it being a complicated thing. Could I just pick up on one thing before I go to you, Mike, that Councillor Hazelton was talking about again with the hard to access and you don't know what's going on behind closed doors. Do you link to other agencies to when a place is hard to access, and whether they are aware of anything else that's going on with that, like the police and the social services, etc.?
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll try and link in where we can to any services that we feel are relevant. Our staff are all trained to make sure that they're using their professional curiosity to find out whether there's other things going on, and if they need to link in with social services or mental health team or any other agencies that they need to, that they will. We've had a lot of issues recently around people that are storing and cluttering the properties. And so it's about getting them the right help so that they can manage that. Sometimes that's a barrier for people in hard to access, because they don't want to let you into the home because they may have lots of belongings in that property. So we will make sure they've got the right services involved and the right agencies, and we have regular meetings with those and provide those professional meetings as well when we need to. Thank you.
Thank you. Marie, you wanted to come in.
Thank you, Chair. Just linked to that, and then if I can come back on the protected characteristics as well. So linked to that is that obviously cuckooing is an issue. We know it's an issue. We've had experience of it in the area. If anything is identified through visits, through the Community Safety Partnership, we also have vulnerability panels. So where somebody is suspected of being cuckooed, that case will be brought up at the vulnerability panel. It's a multi-agency panel with social care, with police, with probation, with lots of different partners. And then it's about tailoring the intervention and support around that person. Canterbury led on a cuckooing toolkit. And this was about raising awareness in the community with frontline staff, what cuckooing was, how to deal with it, how to tackle it. And that cuckooing toolkit was actually adopted by Kent County Council, and it's now cascaded out to other areas. On the protected characteristics, it is about equitable outcomes, but it's also about representation. So our engaged tenants, if we know that, 75% of our tenants are women, and if our rep panel was made up of 99% men, then it's not equitable and not representative of our tenants. The other part of the information is that we'll actually be using it to inform staff training. So if we know that there are certain groups within our community that have got various and different needs, it's about training our staff to understand those needs and to be able to support our tenants in the right way. And the last part of this is about using that data to inform policy and make service change. So it's a bit like the education, the way that the education is taught doesn't suit everybody. So it's about looking at how, as a landlord service, we can make adaptations to the service to meet different parts of our community's needs.
Thank you. Over to Mike. Thanks for waiting.
This kind of taps on the same door again. Many times in this document, you're referring to trusted data sets, obviously very important. But from 5.3 through to 5.6, not started on the data, the procedure needed for data entry and collection of the data protected characteristics. The data entry doesn't seem to be started here. So how are you protecting the recording of the protected characteristics themselves.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, so in terms of 5.3, you're absolutely right on the plan at the time we submitted it. It had an interdependency with 5.2, so it is complete now. So when we put in our next submission to the regulator, we will update this to complete. So yeah, but you're absolutely right to raise it. I think the reason we didn't want to complete it too quickly was just so that it could embed, get feedback from the team. I've spoken to the team today, so, you know, and it's working, and the data is being input. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Duke. Unrelated, I have a query on how the rest of the team and the wider teams are doing in their complaints handling. Have you got the same people doing it, or have you got like a turnover? Somebody does it for a bit and then hates it. Are they all okay with it? Because it's not for everyone. Just wondered how it's going. Thank you. Is that Tracy? Thank you.
Yeah, so our complaints are actually answered by the service areas that deal with them. It is the same people, but what we've done is try and widen that so that we've got more people that are able to answer, because we know that we weren't meeting some of the targets on there. So there were certain people that are under pressure. So it's about relieving some of their workloads, but also getting additional people in to be able to answer some of those. So it is the same people. Not everybody loves complaints, but it's part of our day-to-day work, and we do our best, and we've had a lot of training as well for staff to make sure that we're responding in the right way. We've done a lot recently as well about putting compassion into our responses, trying to stop escalation as well with our complaints. So we've kind of battled. The biggest bit for us was making sure that we got them out on time and that we were actually answering them. And now it's about the quality of those that are going out. It's about trying to prevent them from going to the next stage, try and prevent them to going to the Ombudsman, and try and resolve people's complaints in the best way that we can. We can't always, you know, help people with everything they want, but it's about making sure that we do the best that we can as a landlord, and we are learning from those. So we're taking those complaints and we're looking at, well, what happened with that? Why did that happen? What could we do differently as a service to try and stop that happening again? So there's been a massive amount of work that's been put into complaints. And I'm really pleased to say that I was just trying to pull up the complaints performance, which I didn't manage to do quickly enough, but we are at the 90, I think about 98 to 100% on our complaint responses now in terms of getting them out on time. So it's been a massive improvement.
Big congratulations.
Yeah, it's been massive. So the team are putting such good effort into it. Thank you.
Thank you. I've asked before about having a sort of a breakdown of what the complaints are, what sort of the areas there are. Am I right in thinking there's a report going to the next cabinet or to cabinet soon about the complaints? Is that right? Or in July? And maybe we could get that as well. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a complaint going to Cabinet, and then I think we said at the last one we were going to look at whether we do a spotlight here, and then we can drill down to any of the areas that you want to, but there is a breakdown of areas within that. So the reports are published on Monday, so you will be able to see those for Cabinet. So you have to have a look through those, but we can do another report here that we can look into anything that you'd like to on Spotlight.
Thank you. And if we're not getting, sorry, Marie, looking the wrong way.
Thank you, Chair. Just the caveat is that the report that's going to Cabinet is the end of year report. So it's up until the 31st of March. Tracy's comments on the current performance, where it's increased, is for this financial year. It's just to flag that.
Thanks. I think that does lead us into. I mean, we've got the report next, which is our spotlight for today. But we do want to talk about what the spotlights we want. Is this the right sort of time to maybe have a think about that? So complaints is one which sounds interesting. I know I'd find that interesting. Hard to access. Yeah, we've got hard to access. We've got, and there was ASB was another one which we've had sort of pending, I think, haven't we? Which includes fly tipping. Yeah, well, there's other things around it. Councillor Hazelton.
Yes, thank you. So I've As has been said, the cabinet meeting has actually been brought forward, I think, from the 2nd of July to the 30th of June, but the papers will be out either tomorrow or Monday. But for completeness, I was wondering, although they always lag behind because it's the performance outturn report for 20, yeah, I need to remind myself of the year 25-26. So some of the data isn't as fresh as the data, for example, that is being shared here. But I was hoping that you might agree to look at that whole report, because it is we are a cabinet committee and it's reported to cabinet, but I also think that it would be, really good opportunity for this committee to look at it. It's been to REP. Now, it was discussed earlier this week at REP, and it will be discussed in cabinet. But I think, some kind of scrutiny and, this sort of, really detailed look at and questioning of last year's performance data would be really helpful, to kind of complete that governance cycle that goes through. So if people would be happy, Chair, I'd really like it to come as an item here and the comments fed back.
I'm getting lots of nods from around the room, so that sounds like a really good idea. And I think that that wider context is a good thing for us to have and to look at. So we've got lots of ideas. It's just going to be the ordering of things, isn't it? That is going to be what's the best order. Maybe that's something we'll discuss out of the meeting. So if we're all done on that item, thank you very much, everybody, for your input. And we'll move on to the next. Here we go. The Spotlight Report on Tenant Engagement and Communications. It's another report to note. Oh, did we note the other one? Are we all right for that? We've noted it. So we've got another report from Tracy Chambers. We're going to invite Victor Dubrava, the Principal Policy Officer for Consultation and Engagement, to introduce the report, make any opening remarks before questions. Thanks, Victor.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to cover how we currently engage with tenants, what the different tenant groups have been working on, and where we are looking to go next in terms of how we communicate, and also talk about results of the tenant satisfaction measure survey for the last financial year. The slides should be on the screen, but also you would have received a copy, and also there's a printed copy around. So next slide, please. Thank you. Currently, we have 48 members across all of our formal engagement groups. The Resident Engagement Panel, Disability Forum, Tenant Communications Group, and Independent Living Forum. Each of these groups has a distinct focus, and I'll come on to what they do and what they've been working on in a moment. In terms of our newsletters, we send 2 editions each year to more than 5,000 tenants. This year we did an extra edition specifically to share the tenant survey results earlier than we would otherwise have, so tenants don't have to wait too long for the results of the survey, because usually it will be in the summer. We are also launching a dedicated independent living newsletter this year, which residents in those schemes have been asking for. The last one was back in November 2020, so it will be a nice welcome addition to everyone involved. We also use our website, more specifically our Get Involved page. On this page, we explain how our tenant engagement works, ways tenants can get involved as council tenants, newly published tenant engagement strategy, and we are also adding performance information onto a dedicated performance page, along with the tenant satisfaction measures. Since April this year, we also started to run housing hubs, which came on the back of the communications group and resident engagement panel, who were asking to have a bit of a presence on estates. We looked at different ways to approach this, and the communications group wanted a more local approach. It was agreed to start with 6 estates, so in Hersden, Whitstable, Herne Bay, Spring Lane, St Stephen's and Tannington. So these take place monthly, and the housing officer attends each one along with 2 members of the communications group. We are mindful that currently the footfall is quite low. I think the best one attended is in Thunnington with around 5 tenants. Whitstable is the lowest one with currently no one attending, I believe. But we are looking at moving the Whitstable one to somewhere a bit more local to tenants. We will be promoting this in the upcoming newsletter and also spoke to the housing officers to try and push the promotion a bit further. We're also planning 3 community days, one in Whitstable, one in Herne Bay, and one in Canterbury. We do this every year, and it's a great family afternoon, which involves games, prizes, and the opportunity to speak to the housing team. And also during these days, we will have staff heading out into our neighborhoods to chat with residents. So we are hoping we will do the big door knock survey. So we are hoping that allocating each group just a small number of homes to visit during the day, we would have a chance to really get into kind of like the nitty gritty of telling us about how satisfied they are with the housing provided by us, and focusing specifically on things like repair handling, if there are any outstanding repairs, if people have any damp and mold issues, if they need help reporting with this, if they're aware of any antisocial behavior, if this was reported, how they found it was handled, but also gather some of their thoughts on how they're finding living in the neighborhood or their community. So we will do 3 of these when we do the community days, and then 1 door knock event in September as well. On the last slide, we provide all of the information about the upcoming housing hubs and the days for community days, so you are more than welcome to join if you like. We also promote opportunities for tenants to get involved in other activities like our annual gardening competition. We feel like this celebrates the efforts tenants put into maintaining and also improving their outdoor spaces, whether that's private gardens, communal areas, or smaller container displays. There are multiple categories, so everyone can take part regardless of space or experience. And we hope that it helps to build a bit of pride in schemes and also encourage social interaction. Entries are judged by partners and staff, and there are also prizes involved, which are supported by local sponsors. We've got 2 more workshops. We cover different topics where tenants are involved. That includes repairs, maintenance, complaints handling, high-rise building safety guides, and I believe the last one was really successful because we brought in tenants who hadn't previously engaged with us before, which is really good. And our tenants also help us design focus leaflets around different topics such as damp and mold, recharges, Legionella, and things like that. Next slide, please. So I appreciate the writing is a bit small on that one. So just to give you a sense of what each group actually does in practice, the resident engagement panel meets roughly every 2 months, but recently a bit more often as we been quite busy. We have quite a few things coming up. So it's made up of members drawn from all the other groups and tends to focus on policy level matters. So things like the void policy, the pet policy, antisocial behavior, and complaints. A good example of the contribution they made was with the neighborhood policy statement. That included really practical advice from them on how things like how to approach a neighbor about the noise issue, what counts as antisocial behavior, how to manage expectations around what the council can and can't do. They also were really involved in the tenant handbook. Rep members fed back on everything from the images used, making sure they actually reflected the people living in their homes, through to clearer wording in the pet and antisocial behavior sections, and also making the handbook interactive online so it's easier for residents to navigate. They also pushed for it to be promoted through the tenant newsletter so people actually knew it existed. These are the kind of changes that are quite easy to overlook, but make a real difference when something is useful or just sits on a shelf. We're also really lucky to have Mike and Sheila here today as our chair and vice chair of Resident Engagement Panel, who between them have put an enormous amount of time and energy into making all of this work. So I'll let the agenda items speak for themselves, but none of it happens without people like them. The Tenant Communications Group meets once a month and is probably the most active in terms of visible output. They are responsible for setting up the housing hubs, which I talked about earlier, and they also review and draft everything that goes out to tenants. For example, the group has looked through all the contractor letters and rewritten them. They fed back that some of these were not as clear or as friendly as they could be. A lot of the letters tended to lead with the legislation, which wasn't the most welcoming way to open a letter about the boiler inspection, let's say. And the group also worked through them to rewrite them, to write them in more plain English. So leading with a clear call to action and keeping any technical language towards the end. The Disability Forum, we are in the early stages of setting up Disability Champions, which involves officers signing up to the Local Government Association Network. We already have 2 officers signed up and undertaking training with Disability Rights UK. They will be responsible for raising awareness, so helping colleagues, stakeholders, and the wider community understand disability issues, common barriers, and also why accessibility matters. Building partnerships, so connect with different disability organizations and other stakeholders. Independent Living Forum meets quarterly and brings together residents and council officers to share feedback, shape policies, and also address any day-to-day issues affecting sheltered and independent living schemes. It functions as a two-way engagement platform where tenants raise concerns about things like repairs, safety, waste, communal facilities, and officers provide updates on service policy changes and operational decisions. Next slide, please. We are strengthening how we communicate with tenants by introducing a wider range of channels, including email, text messaging, and social media. So this responds directly to feedback from our tenant groups, who have told us they want more flexible and accessible ways to stay informed and get involved. And we are almost ready to begin rolling out email communication from the week commencing 29th of June using MailChimp. These updates will be sent every other month and will focus mainly on service-related information, such as updates, community events, and links to key documents like the tenant handbook and engagement strategy. We will also be including light touch content like the upcoming garden competition to help maintain engagement. It's important to highlight that the communications group has played a key role in developing this approach and will continue to review and approve content before anything is sent out, ensuring that they have oversight and the communication that we send is relevant and is not overwhelming. We will also support this approach through the council website where tenants can sign up to receive emails via the Get Involved page. In addition, we will be piloting text messaging for specific projects, starting with work aimed at engaging with tenants in properties where there is an opportunity to strengthen communication and participation. Social media is still in development, but we are exploring options such as Facebook, WhatsApp groups, and we will work closely with tenants to decide what platforms work best and how they would like to be contacted. Overall, our aim is to move towards a bit more responsive approach that shares information a bit more effectively, but also creates a stronger feedback loop between tenants and the council. So there was a spotlight on tenant engagement, and I'll now move on to talking about the tenancy satisfaction measures. And just to give you a bit of an overview what it is. So tenancy satisfaction measures it's a national framework that every housing provider has to do each year. The results get published and submitted to the regulator, who then provide a sort of national benchmark and national scoring to see how things are doing. And that's really to capture tenant views across a range of different metrics. Some of them we talked about tonight already, like repairs, complaints, neighborhood management, things like that. The regulator sets out a minimum sample size. So that's how many people we need to interview for us to have a reasonable confidence in the results. In total, we have 5,096 properties, which means we need a minimum of 537 completed surveys to meet that minimum requirement. We achieved a total of 649, so a little higher than the minimum required, and that gave us a marginal margin of error of plus minus 3.6%. So we've got a better confidence that we met that standard in terms of how accurate the data is. And that gives us a reliable view of overall tenant satisfaction from the data. The data was provided to in-house research, who put together all these statistics for us. So the analysis, the consultation wasn't conducted by us, the outputs were not. In terms of the methodologies used, 69%, as you can see, of responses came back via postal returns and 31% by digital returns, CAWI, which stands for Computer Aided Web Interviewing. Just rolls out of your tongue. Giving us that total of 649 responses. So if we go to the next slide, I'll take you through some of the demographic breakdowns of responses. So overall, our responses were 61% from female and 35% from male. And we can see as we go up the age groups, the older age groups make up a bigger proportion of the survey responses. On the whole, we understand from in-house research that the data is broadly representative of our tenant population. If we go to the next slide, please. We've got different employment statuses now. So the numbers here match quite well. 48% of tenants indicated they are age 65 or over, and 47% that they are retired. In-house research also looked at some of the household composition, and we can see that the largest group is single-person households age 65 and over at 36%, followed up by other single-person households at 22%. Couples without children make up 24%, and couples with children 9%, and single-parent households 8%. We know from in-house research, they gave us some caveats here, that all the tenants and single older households consistently report higher satisfaction across most measures. These tenants might have longer tenancy durations and may also have more stable expectations of service delivery. In contrast, households with family responsibilities and working age tenants report maybe lower satisfaction levels. These groups may appear a bit more critical in relation to engagement, neighborhood management, and sometimes complaint resolution. So for us, it suggests that different groups, as you would expect, experience the service differently. All the tenants may have fewer interactions with complaints processes or neighborhood issues, and families may experience a greater number of service interactions relating to repairs, antisocial behavior, or things like that. Next slide, please. So, health and disabilities, 59% of tenants have told us that they have a health condition or disability, so quite a high percentage overall there. Of those, we were also asking what type of health condition or disability they had. So that was broken down into different categories. the largest proportion of that had mobility issues at 65%, which aligns with the broader tenant profile we see in the data. But the other bigger one we've got was 48% physical. So they're kind of interlinked, the mobility issues and physical, and then mental health, which is at 40% of responses. In terms of breakdown of sexual orientation, 84% of respondents indicated they are heterosexual. If we go to the next slide, please. So we can see that 92% indicate they were white, and then on the religion side, we have 55% Christian or 30% no religion. So 85% predominantly Christian or no religion. The tenant profile is relatively consistent with most tenants identifying as white and either Christian or having no religion or being heterosexual. This means we have our scorecards here. This shows a satisfaction throughout the 12 tenant perception measures. We have our overall scores in the middle. Underneath that, we've got a little up or down arrow, which obviously is comparing our data against last year's results. So if we see down arrow, we are seeing a little drop. If we are seeing an up arrow, we are seeing an improvement. The only score showing greater than 5% difference on last year is home safety. We've been advised by in-house research that the main thing that they generally see, and this isn't just unique to us, it's that every landlord they've done this for, is that the web responses typically achieve a much lower satisfaction level to those that are postal. So what is this really showing us? The headline is that our core housing services are performing reasonably well. 7 in 10 tenants are satisfied overall, and repairs is our strongest area, which I believe is sitting above the national average for local authorities, which sits at 68%. Where we start to see scores soften is around the condition and safety of homes, both sitting in the mid to high 60s. Those scores are broadly in line with the national average, but obviously there are areas we want to improve. Part of the challenge in-house research explained is that sometimes tenants might mean a well-maintained or safe home is not always what we might assume. We might assume it might be something about compliance, but tenants often talk about things like how things feel day to day, whether they feel confident that issues will be picked up and dealt with, and communication plays a big part in both of those. With the last one, TP06, although this went up by 1.7, it's still lower overall. In-house research provided us with a card of specific breakdown of how people of different ages completed the survey by employment status, household composition. And we know that with this one, our lowest demographic were households with families. So that's why we are putting a lot more resource this year into community days, such as where hopefully it will be very family friendly, where people can come in and there will be opportunity for face painting, circus skills, there will be an ice cream van. So we're trying to make it as family friendly as possible. But we know we need to keep on improving on this one and think about how we engage people better and how we can break into some of the other different tenant groups as well. Next slide, please. The second set of measures tells us that 6 out of 10 tenants are satisfied with how we, as the landlord, inform them. Complaints, neighborhood management, and antisocial behavior are the areas where we have some work to do. As we've talked about, complaints can be challenging, and from we understand from in-house research, it's the lowest scoring across the country. The industry average was about 30% last year. So this is the lowest of across all of them for every local authority. Satisfaction that the landlord keeps communal areas clean and well maintained. This one is at 55.9. We generally see lower satisfaction in apartments and flats than we do in houses. With houses, there is fewer communal areas, so the main thing that does generally come up on this are two things: cleanliness and are people cleaning after themselves, and also tying into antisocial behavior, which they're both quite linked. So tenants who feel their neighborhood is well managed and that issues are dealt with fairly tend to score a bit higher. Those are areas where visibility matters a lot, so which is why we've decided to do the door knock project this summer, selecting a small number of homes and asking questions about these issues that matter most to our tenants. Next slide, please. So going back to our engagement, we are holding 3 community events. These will be aimed at community fun. We are hoping by changing the message last year, I think we branded them Community Listening Days. We are branding as Community Fun Days. We're hoping the branding will attract more people. And as I said, we booked circus skills, face painting, ice cream van, which all of them will be free for tenants once they speak to us at the housing stand. Whilst the events are going on, there will be officers, councillors, and engaging tenants doing a big door knock. Invites are to follow, I believe, where we'll be asking a set of questions to tenants. We've contacted all of the local organizations and groups surrounding the events and have been inviting them to either come along or to help us advertise. We will also continue working with them throughout the year. So, for example, St. John's Church in Swellcliffe are very keen to work with us. They have a great connection with local families across all of Whitstable and will be supporting future events. During a high-rise building safety workshop at one of our schemes, a few tenants spoke about limited activities for young people, as well as concerns around antisocial behavior and well-being. So in response, we work with residents there to organize a community garden party in August with support from Cardo and the Heron neighborhood team. Last slide, please. Just thought it might be helpful to have a last slide with a list of activities coming up over the next few weeks if you like to join any of these. And I welcome any questions. So I appreciate it was quite a information overload.
Thank you very much, Victor. That was really very thorough. It's great hearing all this action based on, using the research findings and really trying to target depending on the messages that the data's giving you, which is really positive. Mike, you wanted to come in, thanks.
One point of clarification and 2 kind of requests. The point of clarification is that the comms group hasn't looked at all the documents, but fair play, give credit where it's due. The changes that we've had influence in making have been rolled out by the officers to many other documents that we haven't identified specifically. It's much wider scope, but that's down to the officers spreading it through. The 2 questions would be, on the demographic breakdown responses, it would be nice to see the gender mix of the age groups, as it may well be, as I would assume, the female bias is larger in the older population. It would be nice to see how the general population is reflected in the other age groups. She's a survivor. The other aspect is that you refer to the national averages on all of the TSM results. It would be nice to see them there. Thank you.
Thank you. Victor, come back.
Yes, thank you. We have a report from in-house research, so they provide way more detailed breakdown of everything, so we can provide that to everyone that is interested or to the committee as well. So there's a lot more breakdowns of all of the statistics. Thank you.
Yes, I agree about the national statistics, national averages as well. That's really helpful to be able to see, although you don't want them to become aspirations, do you? Because some of them are quite low. You want to have aspirations way above that, of course. But thank you. Councillor Buckman. Oh, sorry. I was Okay, Councillor Carnac, beg your pardon. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I had a couple of things. In the household composition, we have single family and couple family households together. Is there any way we could strip those out so we can see how many actual single family households they are? At the moment, they're both in together, either no children, dependent children, or a lone parent household. So I think it would be quite useful if we knew where, well, not that we know where they are, but you know what I mean, but to actually know how many single parent households we have. I wanted, given the demographics, and there were 659 responses, I think it would also be useful to know predominantly where those responses come from, because sort of looking at those demographics, you think, it's probably quite a bit of Herne Bay in there, and maybe some Whitstable and Hurstone, but is there much Canterbury in there? So that's just from looking at the demographics. So are there areas that we need to be focusing on more? Because you look at the breakdown of responses and you think there are a lot of probably single parent households missing, a lot of yes, probably families in Canterbury missing, and there's it's the very high number of retired people, which you can understand, makes sense, doesn't it? Because you've got the time to do it. So maybe you could do that. And then you mentioned very much earlier about Whitstable and no one turning up, and that you were looking at moving. Can you tell us where you are meeting and where you're looking at meeting? Are you meeting near enough to where it's suitable for people? And then just finally, on your community engagement, where you say events in the district, if you're looking at the festival in Herne Bay, I would say the carnival would be the night to be out to actually meet families. That's the family night and the fireworks. That's when you get Herne Bay out, and you'll get lots and lots of people out with young families. And there are a few other events like that as well, that I think then maybe you can sort of dig a bit deeper into some of our demographics and people with very young families living in the centre of Herne Bay, which I think we tend to miss quite a lot. We see somewhere like Herne Bay as a older person's community, but it's not in the centre, and not in our housing either. It's a very young demographic in the centre there. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Victor.
Thank you. With the national, with the Standard Office for National Statistic categories, I think in-house research looked at what they collect, and that's how they've broken it down. But we can definitely go back to them and see whether they can do a little bit more there. There is furthermore in the report detail that actually Whitstable is the area where people are happier, or they score higher than, for example, Canterbury. I think Canterbury was our lowest one. So the detail again is in the report. I was mindful my presentation was already quite long, so it was a we have that information there definitely. So we can circulate the report from in-house research, and all the detail is there. And thank you for the carnival suggestion. That's a great idea. We'll definitely take that on board. Thank you.
Thank you. You okay? Was there something else you wanted to add? No? Did you get all your questions answered? Yeah. Yes. Oh, Tracy, thanks.
So I was just going to add to that actually for next year's surveys, what we are going to be doing is we're going to be targeting people via telephone. So we're going to make sure that we've got across all of our areas, so making sure we've got Whitstable, Herne Bay, Canterbury, a mix of tenants, a mix of ages, to try and represent the demographic that we've got within our tenants, so that we get a true representation of actually how everybody is feeding across there. So it should hopefully then be able to assist with that and getting that cross data match. Thanks.
Thank you. It was Councillor Buckman next, please.
Thank you. Just a couple of things really, sort of on engagement and community. I think one of the things I was thinking of is about sort of all the people who go out litter picking, because they're not, and I've said it a few years, they've said they're not eligible for the Mayor's Awards because they're groups. But I think it'd be really great if they could be recognised, because they, you know, I know all round there's a group of ladies who go out very early in the morning for about 4 or 5 hours and pick up lots of rubbish. And I just think, you know, they don't do it for recognition, but I just think it would be nice to recognise people who do that. And then also on the same sort of subject, when I was at the that eco fair the other week, that people were interested in those how to form friends groups leaflets, but I can't find anything about it on our website, on the council website, about how to form a friends group. And actually, someone did ask actually about would they be able to put up a Swift box on their council house? But I would guess they'd need permission to do that. And then regarding that housing hub leaflet you did, I think it was like orange. Was that the orange one? Yeah. So someone, I don't know if it's someone here, put it on the Windcheap and everything Bannington and Windcheap Facebook group. Obviously they post it anonymously, but yeah, I'm quite, you know, just keep doing that, because that's got like a reach of like 1,200 people or so at the moment. So anything that's community based, you know, I'll be happy. Obviously, I'll let you through and you can anonymise it so it doesn't look like it's come from the council. Partnership One, they do social value rather as well as Cardo, so it might be worth contacting them. And then, yeah, the TP10, the communal thing, because there's quite a few broken communal doors on properties that I notice, because obviously you can get in after 10, but because they're broken. And then there was one last point. Where is it? Oh, on the disability options, like hidden disabilities, because that isn't down there. I think that might be quite an important one to have as an option to tick. But that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Buckman. Is there any wanted to come back on that?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for that. With the litter picking, definitely agree. We can have a think how we recognize that and what we can do about that. Good shout out about the Windcheap community group on Facebook. We often find that when we, even with consultations, any other engagement, when we share it to community groups on Facebook, whether that's Canterbury or Hanbay or Whitstable, we have a bit more engagement than if it's just posted on our Canterbury City Council Facebook. I think we already do some work with Partnership One, so we're already looking into that. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jupe.
Councillor Buckman's just reminded me. Pip, you and I were at the BID AGM yesterday, and they're launching an app, which is going to prove very useful for Canterbury City Council to get engagement. It's for everything from businesses to events in the city and Herne Bay and Whitstable. So I would recommend maybe bringing somebody from BID in with the tenant engagement panels to explain basically how it's going to help everyone. I don't know what the cost is going to be. There's going to be no cost for users, obviously, but in terms of posting and things like that. The other one is that was a great presentation, and the demographics took me through a bit of a journey on my perceptions. I did pick out on the fact that the obviously far right foghorns are quite clearly wrong in that everyone is taking our council houses, which I quite enjoyed. If there's 92% people identifying as white answering the survey of a pretty fair proportion, it kind of disproves that point, which I'm going to dine out on for a long time now. Are we also able to access that raw data? Because they were fantastic stats that you picked out, but there's more stats to be picked out from that, and I would love to do that because I'm a stats nerd. I mean, it's like it's been said, I mean, the different demographics, it's like the 50% that don't identify as Christian, are they the also over 65s? That's what I'm imagining, but I almost want to be proven wrong. if that makes sense. It's like I'd like to have a look at that data a little bit more to understand what we could suggest in terms of going again.
Thank you, Councillor. And Victor, thanks.
I believe we can share the raw data, depending what our privacy notice says, but we'll look into that. Yeah. But it's we do have access to that, so of course, yeah, we can share that. And thank you for the suggestion of the going to the place. What was it called? The bid. Sorry. Bid. Yeah, of course.
Bill Hicks is the
Okay.
officer who is the link.
Thank you.
Okay, Mike, thank you.
You preempted me with the hidden disabilities, but to add to that, the mobility, I would like to know the differentiation, the difference between communication, hearing, learning and visual, and the difference between mobility and mental health and physical health, because of course they all overlap so much. I'd like to know how somebody differentiates themselves between them.
We can have a look into what the breakdown is specifically, but I'm also aware that tenant satisfaction measures are set by them, so the questions are set by them and also probably the options. So there might be limits to how we can affect that. I believe we can add questions if we want to, but we can't amend the questions or the options. Thank you.
Thanks. And presumably people can tick more than one option on some of these measures, can't they?
Yeah, they can, and as we could see, there were people ticking multiple options on those.
Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you. I keep hearing about Canterbury, Whitstable and Herne Bay. Well, I live in a small village and there are a lot of small villages with council housing and they are not as looked after, or the areas they're in aren't as looked after as well as Canterbury, Herne Bay and Whitstable. I know that from my own. And the other thing is some people with disabilities don't like being recognised as disabled. And I put my hand up to that as well. It's one of those things that if they think of themselves as disabled and disadvantaged, they're not going to help themselves. They need to think, I have a disability, but I can do. That is my motto in life. I can do this. If I can't do it, I try. If I still can't do it, then I ask for help. But as Mike said, I'm one of the survivors. I don't think of myself as a victim in any way. Now, can we please mention some of the villages? Because they do have people, tenants, that are in the same sort of circumstances, especially those in smaller villages where there are only, say, half a dozen houses that are council. I know my village only has about 10, 11, somewhere there. It used to be more, but those have been bought. So, and when they've been bought, the attitude of the area changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. It's an interesting point, isn't it, about these ever diminishing, smaller and smaller groups, and how you're capturing all that. Thank you. But it's interesting. But I think the location demographic is going to be an important one. Did you want to come back, Victor, on that? Okay, thank you. Thanks, Sheila. Mike.
First, on the back of that, I know we haven't got any details on historical situations so much, but it would be nice if we can find out or start recording how the population of tenants is shifting, whether it's all moving towards the cities or whether it's dispersing. What's the nature of the changes? I know it's not going to be a short picture because, I mean, you've got to buy the properties to begin with. The other thing I mentioned is this posting of the orange flyer. Could it be Would it be possible to work with either REBS or the comms group in order for them to be involved in the posting of it, so that it rolls out as part of tenant engagement and doesn't have to be an anonymous posting by the council or be badged by the council necessarily? Because we all want it to be spread around.
Victor?
Mike, I will ask you as a vice chair and a chair, Mike and Sheila, would you be interested in doing the leaflets around the area? So yeah, definitely it's something we can have a look at and review, of course. Any idea like that, it's more than welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Pip Hazelton, thanks.
Thanks, Chair. So just a quick ask of officers really to make sure that councillors get given these dates for the community events, the big knocks, you know, so that people can get them in. You know, we've had the benefit of seeing these, but I think if we can get something out to all councillors, and having been guilty of it myself sometimes in the past, you know, maybe a reminder as well, you know, like an early flag up of the dates for people's diaries, and then a reminder, you know, in the week or so before would be helpful, because I think a lot of councillors would like to be able, you know, if they are able to turn out. I think that'd be good. And then the other thing is, you talked about what this big knock. I'm interested to know what particular questions, because the analysis of, you know, of what we're finding out, is that informing the questions that are going to be asked? Because I'm certainly volunteering to be part of the big knock, and, you know, will I have I know what it's like to go door knocking if I'm canvassing for votes when, you know, but obviously I'd need to have if not a script, you know, what sort of information are we trying to, you know, get, you know, as well as saying hi and, you know, and just, you know, having a nice chat if people want to, but what particular information are we hoping to get?
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Yeah, with the big door knock, we have drafted a survey. We had a meeting about it a couple of weeks ago. There's at the moment about 6-7 questions, and they are focusing on how satisfied people are with the housing service provided. Have they had any repair carried out in the last 12 months? How satisfied were they with the repair that was handled? Do they have any outstanding repairs? Do they have any damp and mold issues? Have they reported it? Were they satisfied with how it was handled? Are they aware of any antisocial behavior in their neighborhood? And again, how satisfied were they with their response? But we also want to gather some thoughts about how they're finding living in the neighborhood and community. We don't want it to be done just by you know, one framework, and it needs to be very clinical, and it just needs to be tick box exercise. It's about building relationships as well. So trying to make sure that the people that open the door to us can actually trust that, you know, we are interested in. It's not just a scary person asking lots of really personal questions. Thank you.
Yeah, sounds great. Mike, thank you.
It would be nice to see what the learning happens as a result of the responses from the big knock.
Yeah, definitely. We'd like to hear back from that. Some of us may well like to get involved as well. So yeah, it'd be good to let councillors know. Just looking at this, you know, this slide of all the groups, it's really impressive. I think the engagement that we get, and I thought it'd be nice to sort of say thank you to people for giving up their time and helping the council in this way, because it's going to really improve how we do these things, having people who are actually living in the housing to make a contribution. So I think a vote of thanks to the members of the panels and the groups, really. Thank you. Any other questions, or are we all finished on that one? That was really, really interesting and very detailed. Thank you, Victor. I think we got a lot out of that, and lots of ideas as well for the future. So I think that's pretty much us done. So we've noted that report. Oh yes, we talked about spotlight reports, didn't we? Anything we wanted to recommend to Cabinet? Sheila, yes.
I'd just like to say, while you're all here, that the garden competition, the awards for that will be on the 5th of August at Tower House. And anybody who's here who hasn't been officially invited is welcome to come.
Can I give the awards out?
Sorry?
Can I give the awards out, or at least the Lord Mayor?
Lord Mayor is being invited.
Chat afterwards.
Yeah. Speak later.
Sorry, Mike. Yeah.
Just to add to that, seeing as it's all being broadcast, if anyone is watching who has a beautiful garden and is a tenant, they should be nominating themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. So we need to make sure everybody's notified of this. I think we've had a good discussion. We've got some ideas for spotlights, which we'll take away. And unless there's any priority that anybody wants to put forward for reports, no, we'll discuss that then. Thank you. And Pip obviously is here, so she'll be able to report back to Cabinet on discussions, etc.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm unfortunately going to be missing Cabinet, but I will be sending a written report, and there will certainly be reference and thanks to the work of this committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so any other urgent business to be dealt with? I don't think there is. No. Oh, yes, there is.
Can we authorise some sort of facilities management to come in and deal with this? Can they deal with the ringing? Cabinet. Is that something Cabinet can do, or is that just a facilities management thing? Because it is killing my ears. Feedback, yeah. No, it's everyone's mic. It's been doing it for weeks. It's been going on for weeks, and there's been an issue with microphones. It's pretty much everyone's. I think it's just me that is worse, but yeah, that was all.
Thank you. Okay, so date of next meeting, there you go, it's happening now. Date of next meeting is Thursday, the 24th of September, 7 p.m. And I look forward to seeing everybody there. Thank you very much, and thanks to the officers for their attendance tonight.